Welcome to CyberMAYnia, cyber talks with the brightest minds in cybersecurity. Discussing risks, AI, emerging threats, workforce challenges, and more. Brought to you by CyberRange Solutions. With your host, May Brooks.
Hello and welcome to CyberMAYnia. With me today is the sensational Dani Woolf. Dani, how are you today?
I'm great. That should be my alarm clock. The sensational Dani Woolf. Welcome. Wake up.
Ooh. Oh, that's fantastic. Maybe I'll do that one for me. Maybe that will get me to wake up. I don't know. Maybe. So as you know, we always start these podcasts the same way, with you sharing a little bit about you, your journey, a little bit of what attracted you to this crazy world we call cybersecurity. And I think we should put this in reference, and you tell us what time it is for you and where you just came back from.
Okay, so my name is Dani Woolf. I'm the founder and CEO of Audience First, VP Marketing, newly minted VP Marketing at the CyberNest. I am at RSA conference in San Francisco. It is officially, I guess, day one, but just came back from an awesome mixer. Not sure how sober I am, so we're gonna get the real juice on this podcast right now. So.
Oh, cool. Well, you don't do traditional cybersecurity. Your role is a little bit different. So can you share a little bit about your role in cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I originally worked for a cybersecurity vendor. I left the vendor space about 2 years ago to start my own agency. And what we do over at Audience First is essentially help security vendors better understand cybersecurity buyers through different kinds of qualitative research methods, whether it's one-on-one interviews, focus groups, podcasts also. And now, since I've been in the community, deeply in the community for the last 2 years with all the stuff I've been doing at Audience First, I've joined forces with the CyberNest, which is a community-powered peer review platform for security practitioners that allows them to share information, intel. It's strictly for IT and security pros. We don't allow any vendors in there. All of our resources are peer rated and reviewed, so you're getting access to the best insights as practitioners. And we also want to facilitate, connections between the security community. So we do that in a closed group. It's free to join. I think you joined as well, May. Yes,
I did. In full disclosure, I did join, but we actually set this podcast up before you joined. Before you joined CyberNest. So yeah, but correct. Yes, I'm part of the community because I think that for security professionals, we tend to not trust like external research companies and marketing spiels. Well, I'm sure they do work on us, but it's a little bit different. And I want to ask you about that because to me, it's always been like peer review. If I'm looking for a specific solution, I will always go to my network and ask them, guys, I'm looking for this. I was looking at XYZ vendors. What do you think? That's sort of my MO. And I know that a lot of people in this industry work in the same MO. So I want to ask you a little bit about the challenges you probably encountered transitioning from traditional marketing to the cybersecurity space. I want to ask you a little bit about the challenges you encountered applying those traditional marketing strategies and techniques in the cybersecurity space.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, the hardest thing to deal with is unrealistic metrics, right? We're faced with very aggressive growth goals, which is fair to a certain degree, but the problem is when you're faced with aggressive growth goals and you're tasked to do traditional marketing techniques in an industry that does not necessarily resonate with those techniques, it works against you. How can you scale growth when you're trying to persuade folks with, oh, look at that.
Yeah, that's
it's because of
iOS for you. Yeah.
So how can you scale growth when you're, I wouldn't say forced, but kind of, pigeonholed into tactics and strategies that don't resonate with your buyer. And so that's one challenge. The other challenge is, I phased into the cybersecurity industry from a different vertical, and fortunately, I quickly realized that the strategies and tactics that worked for other audiences or IT professionals doesn't necessarily work for the security practitioner. And was tasked to execute quickly, oftentimes I wasn't invited to the table to speak with customers. I wasn't invited to analyst calls. I wasn't any qualitative data to truly understand what the motivations are of, not surface level, right? I wasn't able to access them as well because, the practitioner is innately, skeptical of vendors. And so if you're trying to grow business, how can you do that if you know precious little about your customer? And so those are kind of two core challenges that I faced, and I realized that it was systematic, not just with me and other colleagues, but systematic across the board with other peers in my industry. And so I said something needs to be done, and it got to a point where, again, I was pigeonholed at Black Hat to do specific things that I didn't think were the right thing for our company, but also we weren't doing right by the customer. And so I said, threw my hands up. I said, let's leave the vendor side. Let's join the resistance, quote unquote, and work with the buyers and the practitioners and the pros to feed insight to the vendors so that, by extension, doing better for the customer. And it resonated, and people are enjoying it and finding it super useful. And here we are today.
Absolutely. Well, I actually started with a few startups over the years that had a great technological idea. They really did. But then I asked them, okay, but what's the pain point? I mean, I'm your potential customer. I'm a CISO. Why would I buy it? They were like, because it's cool. Yeah, but I can't explain to my board, I bought this because it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it is cool, but so yeah, I agree with you. You talk a lot about customer research and understanding the customer side. And I want to reference your other podcast because you have a few podcasts, but one of my favorite is What the F Did I Just Read? Where you tackle failed sales and marketing attempts in the cybersecurity realm. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What made you start it?
Yeah.
It's great fun for those who don't know it. It really is great fun.
It is great fun. Well, right now I have two co-hosts, Maria Graham and Chris Roberts, but originally Chris Roberts and I kicked off the podcast. We had another podcast years ago called Dr. Dark Web, which went to bed, and we loved podcasting together. And I said, hey, I have an idea. You and I talk about all the shenanigans that goes down with cold outreach and messages, and we share, shady messages with each other on email. So why don't we just do this live, on LinkedIn and as a podcast, and also bring people in to validate their messages. Like we're giving you the platform to validate cold outreach, to validate your messages in your positioning as a free resource. We want to help, affect some change. So we did it because we love to help the community. We also did it because we love podcasting together, and it was just a lot of fun. It was super cathartic. It was also a bit of a laugh. We needed some laughs in our life. So we kicked it off. It really resonated. And then, we saw that we built quite a community, and we saw that our audience was coming back every single week. And, some of our core listeners who are now advocates, were so consistent and so engaged that, I brought one of them on as a co-host. And now actually she's literally sitting in the next room at RSA. We rented out an Airbnb together. So we're having a lot of fun, and all this podcasting and all this work to affect change and to help the vendor community and the security community created quite a community for myself. And here we are in an Airbnb in San Francisco, doing some pretty great things at RSA.
That's so cool. And I love that you mentioned cold calls. And as you know, for me, that's like my war in life is fighting cold calls. I absolutely hate it. Like the best way of getting me not to be your customer is just sending me one of those cold LinkedIn messages or just calling me. I actually had that Friday night, 6:30 p.m. Like I was getting ready for Friday night dinner. That's it. The week is done. And someone called me on my personal phone number and like, dude, no.
May, you know where to go.
No.
You know, just come on and talk to me and Chris. And that's a WTF moment right there.
Oh yeah, well I have a lot of WTF. You've seen my posts. I like put them out there every once in a while because I think that I don't know. Maybe you can shed light. Do cold calls work in other industries? Maybe it's just us.
Not successfully. I think I took one call, not from a cold call, but from a cold email. One call in my 15 years working in the tech industry. And that's because I had how do I get more podcast listeners? And then I realized, you know what? I don't need more podcast listeners. I just need more engaged folks. And that's not on anybody else but me. Right. So I don't think there's a high success rate there. No. And that's why, you know, in our industry specifically and in other industries, it's not, you know, I think it's universal. You know, it's about relationships. It's about understanding people at the end of the day, right? The metric is not, you know, the opportunity. The metric is the people. At the end of the day, you're trying to, you know, help people with their job. You have to understand them. There are a lot of people are dynamic. There are a lot of nuances to their jobs, and so you can't bucket people in a huge pool. You have to treat them uniquely. So I don't find it super successful.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I had a few that actually did touch on some pain points, and that's great. But I love it when people just send me an email or LinkedIn message. I know how to get your customers to buy 100% success. Well, I'm a potential customer. You didn't get me to buy. Don't tell me, show me. But that's another story. I want to ask you a little bit about the use of buyer insight and customer insight for business growth and customer retention. How engaged are companies from your experience in getting that feedback?
I think to a certain degree there are, so, you know, I could split it into different types of companies. There are a lot of early stage companies, right, that do a lot of customer research and get customer feedback in order to validate their products, which is great. But things change, right? When they grow, there are growing pains, the customer changes. And so it's not a one-time thing, it's an always on thing that needs to occur. The larger company, even the scale-ups, you know, that are, you know, taking over the market, you know, they own the markets, right? They have a lot of growing pains as well because they're rocket ships and there are a lot of different arms and divisions, and so there's no one unified program, and so there are a lot of silos, and they don't understand things across the board. It's super critical. Take me back to the core question again, because I'm going off on a tangent.
No, basically, I want to ask you about the success stories, like when companies take their customer feedback, the buyer feedback, how does it help them grow significantly in the cybersecurity industry?
Yeah. Well, again, you know, pursuing and utilizing that customer research is not only critical, like I said, for launches, but sustaining business, or, you know, how do you say, keeping up with the changing market, right? Markets change, buyers change, and when the markets change or the world changes, right? You know, budgets change, people change, the way we feel changes. And so, you know, that impacts buying behaviors. And so if you're not consistently doing that research and consistently following up and really doing that discovery about the customer, it's hard to keep track of the dynamic nature of things. And so, you know, this is why I love customer conversations, and especially like one-on-one conversations, because you can see how people react. And that's also a signal that you could utilize in applying to your business as well, right? If you don't really hear it, maybe you can see it if you can pick up on those cues. So I think there are companies that do a good job. One of the challenges that I see is, sometimes companies will hire agencies to do the customer research for them. They'll get the data, but then they won't do anything with the data. It'll just kind of sit there, collect dust, and it won't be applied to the business, which is one of the challenges that I'm really trying to solve for is, okay, we could do these programs, we can talk to people, but what's most important is how you're applying it to your business. It has to be iterative. It's a long play, right? And you need to understand, how to shift the conversations and how to shift the data points and shift the research objectives based off of what it is you need, and also based off of what your customer needs. And so it's not one and done at all. It's an always on process. It's iterative and has to be applicable.
Absolutely. Well, I think that what you've just said, and I think this entire conversation, to be honest, is sort of picking your brain as a marketing specialist specializing in the cybersecurity industry. And I think that for a lot of companies, especially for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's something that is unavailable to them because they're too small to hire a full-time VP marketing or whatever the title may be, but they still need those insights. Because I have some background in, well, not in marketing, but in business. So I understand what you're saying about, okay, we'll take the research, we'll utilize it, we'll analyze it, whatever. A lot of people in this industry come from a very technical background and they don't have that. And as part of Audience First, you recently launched the Cyber Brain that allows entrepreneurs and salespeople and marketers and, well, basically everyone to basically pick your brain like I usually do on a phone call. But for those people who don't have your phone number, I want to hear a little bit more about your platform, how you came up with the idea, what sort of benefits they can get from utilizing the Cyber Brain.
Yeah, I love that question. I appreciate you asking about it. I did launch the Cyber
I love the idea.
Yeah, I launched the Cyber Brain a couple months ago. Basically, what it is a curated collection of qualitative customer research that I created, right? It's a curation of all of the insights that I've collected over the years with my customer conversations in security. And I've distilled those insights into different themes or objectives that are relevant to sales and marketing. So let's say, you're looking to understand the buyer's journey of a particular, target audience. We have that data there qualitatively, right? And there's enough data, statistically significant data, for you to deduce that is in fact the way you should pursue the customer, or that is in fact the buyer's journey. Or let's say, you need outreach tips and tricks, right? We've sourced all of the tips and tricks to engage through outreach customers in the security space. There are lots of different use cases there. And beyond that, there are resources, templates, playbooks that sales and marketing can use to better pursue customer research, better understand audiences, better understand buying committees, different markets, different roles, so that they're coming to the table with a little bit more knowledge in order to eventually, at the end of the day, persuade customers. At first, the first stage, the first step, phase 0 is understanding what it is you need to achieve. And then it's understanding who is your audience. Only then, when you go through the phases of who your audience is, what they need to achieve, goals, motivation, triggers, decision criteria, all of those, factors that are critical in pairing your solution, service, or tool to the customer, only then can you understand how to best persuade them. And so that's the kind of stuff that I wish I had as a marketer, accessible. And so I'm trying to make it as accessible as possible. Right now, it's a paid subscription, but the nice thing, and I've given this a lot of thought, is that come summer, I'm going to make this completely free, and add an extra element in that I want people to sign up to get these data points, these qualitative data points. I want them to be part of my community. I want them to access the data, super accessible. But the element where we think there's going to be true value is is connecting to security practitioners who are opted in and ready to work with the vendors to collaborate, advise them, go through the one-on-one conversations at scale, right? The benefit also for the practitioner is that yes, they are going to get paid, but beyond that, they're going to learn themselves. They're going to learn about the innovation. They're going to hear and work hand in hand with the vendors to improve, to maintain progress within their organization, which by extension helps the security practitioner progress and become more mature. So that's the element that we're working on right now to develop and engineer. It'll be, a platform that you can buy a credit bank of hours. You can see who it is you want to connect to within the expert network. You can connect with them, whenever it is convenient for the expert security practitioner and yourself. And you don't need any middle women or men. You just go and do it yourself, which is quite cool. And I wish I had that, so that you can get the validation, so you can get the feedback on positioning and messaging, so you can get feedback on your demo, on your pitch, on your product roadmap. Like, we shouldn't have to kiss the ring of Gartner or Forrester, or we shouldn't have to pay, through the nose, as we say, for time to speak with people who want to help us do good.
Absolutely. And I think it's a win-win, because for me, always as a CISO in the past and today, mostly doing advisory board roles, I think it's absolutely beneficial for both sides, because when I share my insights and my needs and my pain points, and the vendor responds and targets those pain points, I get a better product that is better suited for my specific needs. So for me as a CISO, I always tried to be like the beta side or the advisor or whatever, because I found it very beneficial. And for the CISOs listening, it's also a great way of getting a new product in an early stage in a lower price, which is great because we all struggle for budget. So yeah, so that's definitely very beneficial, and that's a great initiative. And I want to thank you for it, because even as today being an advisor myself, I actually was referred to by one of the companies I work with as the marketing guru. I told them, well, if I'm a marketing guru, we have a serious problem. I'm not a marketing guru.
Welcome to my side.
Yeah, but I can hook you up with someone. Yeah, so I think let's let people who are specializing in any field. I think that's true for anything we do. I want to ask you a little bit about the misconceptions that you've encountered about marketing in the cybersecurity industry. Are there any specific misconceptions?
Well, that's a big question. It depends who's thinking about those misconceptions. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. This might not be a misconception, but I'm going to plug it in. Marketers have a seat at the table.
I wish.
Marketers have a seat at the table. They do. Like, there are some pretty smart people in the marketing space. It's like, unfortunately, there's this stigma, right, that is placed on our departments, right, in our profession because of the nature of what we do. But there are a lot of really good people in the security marketing space who are doing very good things, who know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, there are some, shady folks. Unfortunately, there are some also folks who aren't as educated as they should be, and that's not their fault, I don't think. Largely not their fault. But there are a lot of really good marketers who I think deserve a seat at the table. We're doing great things for our community, and I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. Okay.
Do you disagree? So I'm going to put it back at you.
No. Well, depends on the company. Unfortunately, I've encountered many companies that by the time they got someone from marketing or sales at the table, it was sort of too late. The company was heading in a certain direction, and sometimes it would be a home run, which is great. But sometimes, no offense to us techie people, we don't necessarily know how to sell our products. We don't necessarily know if our product is going to sell and how it's going to sell and what pain points it touches. And even that conversation, that term, pain points. Unfortunately, I did encounter not one and not two and not even 5 entrepreneurs that when I asked them, okay, what pain points are you trying to solve? They're like, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about this thing? So I think it depends on what stage a company is or a startup is, because I love working with startups. I don't like working with like the initial idea. We have an idea, let's sit down and make a gazillion dollars. I don't think that usually works. But when they start up with a little bit more maturity, building the product, sort of seed funding, round A, that's sort of my sweet spot. And one of the things that I always ask is to get someone in the marketing space, someone who will help us message what we are trying to do. Unfortunately, sometimes that does fall on deaf ears. They think that, no, we can do it ourselves. And you know what? I'll take you to the next question. We can't talk about marketing and not mention generative AI, because there's such a huge fact. And you know what? I have to say, I use single day. I do. Can it replace copy editors? Maybe to some degree. But I want to hear your perspective as a professional. How do you utilize AI, and how does it change the marketing industry?
So I had this, earlier this week earlier last week had a conversation about AI and marketing, and, as it ties to customer research as well. I'll be talking about this also later this summer at another summit, and I'll send you the link to that because I think it'll be great. But I think I personally use AI as lane lines. I don't rely on it 100%, but it's definitely like sped up my processes, sped up my workflows, sped up the stuff I do, how I distill, how I assess information, how I write sometimes. But unfortunately, I think, AI is causing, how do I say this lightly or in the correct way? I think it's causing a pool of people who are already doing things in a lazy manner to be even more lazy. And that is very risky for customer acquisition, for customer retention, and just brand affinity and like brand reputation. There's that segment. The other segment of people who are potentially doing a good job, but utilizing it, again, I think it could run the risk of making people too lazy, and sometimes miss errors that could be affected in the output. I was speaking to somebody last week who said it's actually making people smarter and more efficient. And I think that's also the case to a certain degree. Like, I think it's made me more efficient. I think it's made me a little bit smarter in how I'm thinking about things with regards to like prompts and use cases and, the way we could use it and the way we could innovate with it. So there's also that segment. So it depends who you are and how you utilize it. But at the end of the day, I think you need to use it with caution, because it's still evolving. There's still a lot of innovation. There's probably not a lot of regulation. People probably don't know the privacy behind it. Is my data secure? Is it not secure? I'm putting all my IP into here. Like, where's it going? Where's it stored? There are those implications. And sometimes people don't think about that. So fortunately, we're in an industry where we ask those questions. And so it makes me more confident about the technology. But I'm certain that there are going to be a lot of really cool things coming up, by the way. And I also think that we're going to be seeing a lot of use cases that we didn't think would be a use case that could be utilized with AI.
Absolutely. Well, I think, for example, if you ask generative AI, ChatGPT, or whatever you use, I'm a marketing director in a company doing this, that, and the other, and I'm building an annual program. It will give you actually not bad output. I looked at it. I actually tried it a few times, and that's great. But don't forget, for those listening, it takes it from somewhere. I'm not sure I want to copy my competitors' marketing strategy unless it's really good and I can be ahead of them, and that's great. But if I'm 2 steps behind, I'll probably be 2 steps behind because generative AI took it from somewhere. basically I'm just copying and it's not going to work. So use with caution. As I said, I use it each and every single day. And I want to ask you regarding that and regarding everything we just talked about, how do you see the role of marketing evolve in the cybersecurity sector, let's say in the next 5 years, with all those changes that we just talked about?
Wow, big questions, May.
I do try.
No, I love this. I haven't thought about it, unfortunately, and I probably should be kicking myself in the tuchus for that. But I think that and I'm starting to see this happen. I think that marketers are starting to become more tech savvy, really understand, the technology landscape in a little bit more detail. I think also we're going to be seeing a shift from spray and pray to more targeted efforts. I mean, you see ABM happening and all of that, but still it's not true targeted marketing there. I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis on like community, on advocacy, on customer marketing, because the market is still volatile, right? But even though we're seeing surges of funding, I think 14 startups just were funded, this announced funding today here at RSA. We're going to be seeing those surges in funding, but still they're going to have to be super frugal with their money. And it costs less to retain customers than it is to acquire new customers. And it costs less money to acquire new customers with word of mouth. So we're probably going to be seeing more focus on the advocacy element, on the community, on the people first go-to-market strategies, the audience first go-to-market strategies, and more focus on subject matter expertise in media like video, short form content. Podcasting, I think, will still be relevant, but we're going to be seeing a lot more video. We're going to be seeing a lot more practitioners who are going to be coming to the table to create as well. So just in this past year, the amount of security practitioners who are created is just blowing marketers out the water. So that's another thing that I think is an anomaly, like seeing the practitioner themselves being interested in becoming creators and becoming educators to expand that knowledge to the broader market. Influencers, thought leaders.
But you know what? Yeah, I think those people, and I think that's something that generative AI definitely helps. I know I have a few friends that have something to say, that have very good insights as practitioners, but they always said, well, I can't do it like you know how to write, I don't know how to write. Well, today you don't need to know how to write yourself. And also I think that writing, and even marketing writing, is a skill. You learn it. Learn it. The more you use it, the easier it is. But definitely generative AI can definitely help there. So I think I tend to agree. We're getting towards the end. So before we do the pop quiz, I want to ask you about one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember about effective marketing in the cybersecurity industry from this conversation, or in general. One key takeaway.
So can I have two?
Okay, fine.
Okay, yeah, special request from Dani. I know, the chutzpah. One, for the marketers, I would say, be patient and maintain grit. You need grit to have it. You need grit in the security space. You need kind of thick skin, because you'll be rejected sometimes from practitioners. You'll get a lot of no's, and it's a hard industry to be in a good way. It's a challenging industry to be in a good way. So keep that thick skin and keep going. Don't give up. And I would say for the practitioners as well, like give some marketers the time of day. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of good things happening. There are a lot of marketers and sales professionals as well who are trying to make a buck, but also do the right thing. So give them the time of day, and don't bucket them into that stereotypical seller or marketer stigma. So
I love that. Okay, so we have two key takeaways. Now, before we wrap this up, we always have a pop quiz. short questions, whatever comes to mind, no right or wrong answers. So let's start with, can you name someone who opened a door for you in your career when you least expected it?
Chris Roberts and Cecil Pineda.
Ooh, Chris, I know, but Cecil?
Cecil the Cecil.
Really? I didn't
100%.
know
He's like the network king.
Okay,
he's opened so many doors for me.
States. So next time I'm in the States, you have to introduce us.
100%.
And I want you on the podcast. Fantastic. Okay. What's the most daring thing you've done recently that really pushed you outside of your comfort zone? I think you always go outside your comfort zone.
Bought a snake.
Really?
Not because I wanted to.
Okay, now you have to elaborate.
Okay, so we moved to the States and my wife wanted a pet and she's always wanted a snake. And I love my wife, so I got her a snake. And she was very scared of it because it snapped at her and I had to take care of it since then. But we had to give him back to the store because I just did not want to take care of the snake anywhere. I literally was schwitzing every time I had to feed him.
What sort of snake? I like snakes.
Boa constrictor.
Oh. Well, I like snakes, but I have 2 cats, so I don't think they'll like my snake. My son and I always wanted a snake, but yeah.
I respect them from afar, let them do their thing. I just, in the house.
Well, I used to have a snake as a kid in school, actually. We used to have this little petting zoo, and I had a snake, and whenever I wanted to get out of English, I used to take the snake with me and put him like a wristband and sit there in class. Now my teacher was terrified of him, so she would just send me out.
No, totally push me out of my comfort zone.
Well, apparently I need to rate this as not for kids, this episode. This is a bad idea. I told my kids to listen to this. No,
E for explicit. Any episode with me is E for explicit.
That's true. Okay, what's the last book, course, podcast that you took that had nothing to do with cybersecurity, but really enriched you on a personal level?
5 a.m. Club.
Ooh, I hate that book.
Yeah, I don't wake up at 5 a.m. But I liked what was said. I just don't wake up at 5 a.m.
No, I tried to do it. After reading this book, I tried to wake up at 5 a.m. for a while. And after about 6 months, I said, well, I'm miserable. I hate it. How about the 2 a.m. go to sleep club? And that's my club. So, yeah, we each have our own club. Cool. A question that I really love. How do you celebrate your achievements?
I tell my wife.
Okay.
I feel really good when I when I feel good, I tell her and we do happy dance. And then we'll probably do a nice dinner or something. But I immediately run to my wife and tell her. That's my celebration.
That's beautiful. I love that. What is your number one advice for someone entering the cybersecurity field, for a marketer entering the cybersecurity field? Let's be specific.
Make a lot of friends, network, talk to people, ask a lot of questions, be curious AF. There are no dumb questions. Network. We were in an Uber now, and the driver was like, oh yeah, I took a CompTIA course and I think it got shut down or something like that. And we're like, keep going, do it, talk to people and do an Udemy course. And Meryl Vernon was telling him you should have no barriers, get into it. It's do it. And so
network. Yeah,
network and just get into it.
Fantastic. And last but not least, if your career would have been a movie, what would be its title?
Oh God. I
love people putting on the spot. I love it.
Yeah, this is great. I like this quick fire. I gotta let me go to ChatGPT. Let's see. No, something. It would probably be synonymous with Jackass the movie. Something like that.
What the F did I just read?
Yeah, welcome to the shit show. Something like that. It's been
done.
This last year was really a roller coaster, really up and down, a lot of failures, and good lessons learned. I love failing it forward, by the way, and telling people about failures, but also learning from those failures. So it's been really like this roller coaster. So something along the lines of like, shit show, jackass, roller coaster. It wouldn't be a horror. It would probably be a comedy movie with a little bit of drama and sadness, but like mostly comedy and empowerment.
I love that. Dani, thank you so much for joining me today. I think that was super insightful, both for the marketers out there, entrepreneurs, practitioners. Everyone can take something from this conversation, and I really want to thank you for taking the time and joining me today.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and I really hope to see everyone here next time on CyberMAYnia.